Well, here we are. Hi, BJ.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you.
Yeah, so it's cold where you are. I did, and before we came on, we were talking a little bit about cold and keeping dogs who haven't had their hair grow out yet warm while they walk. And I forgot to tell you, it's been 70 degrees here all week.
Oh,
And it turns out our guest coaches the Phoenix, so I'm in Phoenix, so that's going to be fun to talk about. But anyway. So,
good.
What's your week been like?
Uh, Good. Not very much volleyball stuff. Just
Hmm.
we're in between fall season and spring season, so I go and do some little video projects and read and listen to podcasts and figure out if there's anything else that I can provide to our coaches, at least at Green Bay. Um, how can we improve? And they've been very gracious about some of the stuff that I've thrown their way. Um, uh, so that's been really good. So these little times in between are kind of good. Good
Yeah, they
times
let
for
you
us.
recharge. We're coming into our season. I think tryouts start the 7th of February, and you know, it's getting a bunch of high school guys to actually get into our register my athlete accounts, and I'm like, guys, look, I'm letting you in the gym. You're not supposed to be here because you got to get your paperwork in order. But get in here. So we're doing open gyms, and we get about 10 guys at a time, but different sets of 10 guys. So I'm cautiously optimistic we'll have a JV team this year, but it could be
Oh,
anywhere
good.
from, yeah, it could be anywhere from JV, varsity only to varsity JV and JVB. We'll see. But it's when you get guys in who I just have new guys walk in every day. I had a senior walk in who's a brand new player. And so for us, it's a little different than the club scene in the North Shore of Chicago where I came from, but that's a good thing too. Well, let's get our guest
Agreed.
out here. So tell us a little
Yes,
bit about our
absolutely.
guest.
So Dell McCreary is currently is our assistant two at Green Bay, UW Green Bay Division One. We play in the Horizon League. Dell's been there for a couple of years now, and we'll get into um, some of her jobs and things that she's brought to the place. Hello, Dell.
Hello, happy to be here.
Awesome. Um, so one of our themes so far on this program has been getting experts on and talking about stuff they're not expert in. But uh, we would not be doing our jobs if we didn't talk to you about your work in social media. So before we get into that, let's talk first about tell us kind of your volleyball journey, where you started and how you got to here. Just do your volleyball arc, and then uh, we'll get into it from there.
Yeah, so I'm from West Bend, Wisconsin, which is close to Milwaukee area. Grew up there, played club, high school volleyball, and then I went on to play volleyball in Dubuque, Iowa at Clark University. And I realized after my first year there that I was super homesick. My sister, who at the time was pretty young, she's 13 now, so we have a big age gap. I wanted to be around her as much as I could. So I transferred to Stevens Point, which was where who now I work for, head coach Abby was the coach. She had recruited me prior, and so it was a quick hour and a half from my house, which I loved because my parents could still come to the games, but I was far enough away where they couldn't just show up at my dorm if they wanted to. And I had the best 3.5 years I could have asked for at Stevens Point. Obviously, it's in the WIAC, so one of the best volleyball conferences for Division III volleyball, and just love my experience there. And then I actually got my degree in elementary education. So I taught fourth grade for 4 or 5 months, and I got the call from Abby. They had just won the Horizon League regular season championship and the tournament championship, and so they were looking for a second assistant, and I accepted the job. And 2 weeks later, moved up to Green Bay, and that was in April of 2019. And I've been here ever since, and it has been quite a journey. I would say when I first got the job, I had no idea what I was doing. And I say that to Abby all the time. You really just need one person to believe in you. And she was that person for me. And she has mentored me every step of the way. And looking back, I could have never guessed that I'd be where I am now. But I'm really grateful, and I'm excited to continue my journey into the volleyball world.
Uh, Remembering that we're live, don't disclose anything that you can't, but do you have any big announcements for us as far as your career path is taking?
I can't say exactly where I'm headed, but I did accept a job a week ago. And yes, I will be continuing into the volleyball world, and hoping to officially announce that in the next week here.
That's cool. And it's a couple of us know what it is. I think people would be blown away by the opportunity if we could announce it. It's really a big thing for you, and a compliment to both you and to Abby and the work that you guys have done at Green Bay. So it'll be neat. Maybe next week on the show we'll tell everybody where
Sounds
you
good.
where you went.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, so just to get the big elephant out of the room, when you came to Green Bay, I've heard this story, and I don't know if this is true or not. I understand that Green Bay had 400 followers, or approximately there, on Instagram, and which is maybe what you might expect. But tell us kind of that whole story. You came in and picked that up right away, and where did that all go?
Yeah, I think when Abby got the job, it was 400, and then she started to slowly incorporate building it. And so when I got the job, we were at 1,200 followers, and now we're at 35,000, which is, to my knowledge, the most of any mid-major volleyball program in the country. Which, again, if you would have asked me that when I first got the job, that was not my intention. I really, starting with Instagram, I really just wanted to get Green Bay volleyball out into the world. I think, especially on Instagram, volleyball is a secret sport that it has a huge following. And so I honestly, when I took it over, it was something that I truly enjoyed. And my passion is to post things on social media regarding volleyball. And I just found that a couple of our videos, once I posted them, were getting hundreds of thousands of views. And so I thought to myself, well, I might as well keep doing this. And so then it turned into posting a lot more and more consistently into a target audience. And I started reading articles on how the Instagram algorithm works and things like that. And I got really deep into the research of it. And so all of a sudden it just blew up. And now every time we post a video, sometimes gets more than a million views, which also is crazy because some people, if you ask them, don't even know where Green Bay, Wisconsin is. And so I mean, I can get into the depths of, I guess, my research if that's what you want me to, and I guess kind of like my secrets to social media.
I didn't know that it was so much that, or for me, I'm just blown away by what you were able to do from these 1,200 people to now. If and you do have to be somewhat careful as
Yeah.
a person in the program. Like for me, um, I kind of have to watch out because a million people could see something that I did in one of the videos that you're posting.
Yeah.
So it's
And that's
it gives you a
a
little
one
pause.
of the cons, I would say, as to like, yes, we have this big following and a lot of people now see everything we post, but it has made me triple check everything that I'm posting beforehand because especially with NCAA, there's so many rules and there have been things that I've held back on posting in the past just because I'm unsure if it would be a violation or not. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I definitely get more anxious now posting things because I'm always second guessing. But yeah, there's so many benefits to it now that we have this filing, but that is also one of the things that I think about a lot is you really have to be careful. And there have been other programs that have gotten in trouble for posting something they didn't realize, was in the background or like on a marker board in the locker room or things like that. And so things that you never would have even thought of are now things that I'm constantly thinking about.
Well, it's good you do that. I was thinking back to some early stuff that just on the YouTube, not on the YouTube. I was sounding like I'm 75 years old. So on YouTube, the YouTube algorithm was causing kickback. Just you do a match and you put match video out there, and at the break they play something that gets you kicked out because it's copyrighted because they played Rihanna's last song and they were like, nope, you can't put that out there. So knowing all of that, and it's got to be interesting now with name and image and likeness. That's going to be interesting for folks on Instagram even or any platform when they put out video of a person who's managing their NIL profile.
Yeah, I would say that's also a big reason of why I've continued to kind of forge ahead with this, especially with now. I remember at NIU this past year, and one of our players dove into this ball rack, and it was an insane play. She was okay, but I had posted that after the game, and the next morning she came up to me and said, I just gained 800 followers on her personal account from posting that, which she was obviously grateful for because the more followers she has, the more she can eventually get with NIL. And so it kind of has a trickle down effect. And so I look at it as, I'm obviously promoting the program, but then when things like that happen, I'm also, helping our players and getting them, into that NIL world as well.
Well, that's the wild, wild west. You'll have to come back and keep us educated here because we're still working on ours here. But our ulterior motive in all this is just to have these conversations, which is really great.
Yeah, I think social media will continue to. I mean, when I was in college, and I mean, I'm not old by any means. I'm 25, but even just a couple of years ago, we weren't. It wasn't even. I mean, there was Facebook and Instagram, but it was very limited on your sports. I don't even think our volleyball team had an Instagram account. I'm unsure, but now you have to have one to promote your brand, and there are specific jobs even that at the bigger schools, each team has their own digital media content creator, coordinator, video. It's crazy. And so I think too, just in that aspect, it's helping the volleyball and just sports community in general with job opportunities.
What do you see in the ebb and flow of different types of media? So, for example, I've got high school kids. We'll go. We'll pick TikTok as one, being very popular now. And it seems to cycle. I mean, Facebook is for old people, right? Or volleyball coaches. But how do you see that evolving, and what makes a platform more attractive to a different demographic?
Well, Instagram started with pictures, and now they're kind of, because of TikTok, getting into videos. I don't know why Facebook is deemed that way, that it's for the older generation. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I still have Facebook, but I think the thing with TikTok is that nowadays everyone's on their phone, and so their attention span is so much shorter. And so on TikTok, you can only make a video 60 seconds or less. It can't be longer than that. And so you're literally just scrolling video after video after video. And so it helps that younger generation who doesn't have much of an attention span just watch 100 videos in 2 minutes. And so I think that is a huge thing with Instagram. I think a lot of it is you'll see there's what's called influencers, and so they just they make brand deals with different brands, and so that's big on Instagram, which is what I think that's more gauging to. But I think in the sports world, especially those two for the video purposes. I mean, obviously pictures are nice, but we have seen an incredible following just from the videos that we post, and they're literally 15 seconds or less, and it's usually just one play. Last month we posted a video of our outside going up, swinging down the line. It was a kill, and we cheered, and it has over 1.5 million views. And so people just see that, and sometimes they watch it more than once, especially if you're into volleyball. And so the more they watch it, the more times it's viewed for them, then it shows up, more likely to show up on somebody else's page. And so it has that just kind of like trickle effect with that. But I would say those two are the biggest apps right now, especially in the sports world from what I'm seeing.
Well, that's really helpful to know. I think we're trying to grow our program, and in a school where we don't have club players, and basketball is it. So, and I'm on the boys' side, so it's always fun to see ways to, we've got our Twitter account and others, but we haven't established an Instagram account for a whole bunch of reasons, but we'll get there. So.
I would say too, for Instagram, that everyone in the younger generation has it. And so for me, what's helped our page grow is that I will post something, and sometimes it's specific to a player. So this past, we released our GPA, and there was a graphic for a 4.0. And so you have the ability to then share that. So, let's say BJ gets 0.0, he can then take that graphic and share it on his personal Instagram account. I mean, it's not bragging by any means, but it's, hey, here's this cool thing I did. And so I think that's also what helps in that aspect, is that you were posting in our page, but then our players are showing off their accomplishments on their own personal page too. And then, their followers click on it and come to our page. So I definitely think Instagram would be beneficial for that aspect.
Great.
Well, here's deep question number one. So you get your elementary education degree, and you have a job, which is a nice, stable environment. You have life's all set up where you could run this job out for the next however long, 30 years, like my wife has. But you jump with both feet into the totally unstable world of volleyball coaching. How was the struggle to make that choice, and what was that like for you?
It was a struggle for sure, and there were a lot of times where I questioned it, because when you get into the coaching world, the salary by no means is $1 million. So that was definitely something that you have to consider. And so I knew that leaving my teaching job, obviously I'd have to find other ways to make money as well. But I don't know truly if I would have done it if I hadn't had someone like Abby who I trusted. Like, I would depend on her with my life. I knew that she had my back, and she was going to do whatever it took to help me. Once I was only supposed to stay at Green Bay for a season, if that. And so it just worked out where she kept fighting for me to be able to stay there. And so you have to have someone in your corner. That's, I guess, my biggest thing. And I don't know if I would have dropped everything and gone and worked for somebody that I didn't know at all. I think Abby is such a dependable, respectable person, and she's loyal. And so that really was the big thing. And I had talked to her when I got my degree. I loved teaching, but it wasn't as much as I loved volleyball. And so in that way, I had reached out to her saying, when did you know? Because she was also an education major who went and got her GA at Southern Miss for their Division I team. And so I had asked her, when did you know that you want to get into volleyball? And she just said, I was done at St. Norbert and I didn't want to be done. I didn't want to be done with volleyball. And that's the same way I felt. I have such a big passion and love for the game that it didn't really make sense for me. I had this opportunity that she was giving me, and it just didn't make sense for me to do that. And I know our other assistant, Corey, he had a full-time engineering job, a sweet gig, and he did the same thing as me. And so it helped that I had someone like him, where obviously he left a super stable, very, very great job for, he went to Platteville at the time, Division III in the WIAC as well. And so having someone like him, who was, talking me through it and saying that, I know you're gonna love this job. You just have to believe that, you're gonna put in the work and eventually it will pay off. And I think that the job offer that I got this past week was really rewarding in that aspect of, the past 3 seasons I've worked so hard and I've done all these things behind the scenes, and I've worked, I mean, we all know coaching isn't a 9-to-5 job. And so I've worked all these hours and things like that. And so finally getting a job offer that, I love and I'm excited for. And even my parents, like, I think when I first got the job, sometimes like family members were like, well, you'll still teach during the day, but you'll coach at night and things like that. And so it was hard for them to kind of comprehend that it was a full-time job. And so, but they've been super supportive about it. And they've also seen how hard I've worked. And I think that it's just been more rewarding because of that. So I'm excited, but I would also give the advice of, if you have that opportunity, take it, because I know a lot of people who are at jobs that, say like, oh, I wish I would have done that when I was younger, things like that. But I mean, takes one person to have in your corner. Yep, BJ, I'm thinking about you. You've told me that story so many times, but yeah, I'm glad I did, but it was definitely scary.
Yeah, I had some advice from a professor when I went back to get a master's about 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. And I just stuck with me: jump and the net will appear. And I kind of like that. It's great to have mentors like you've had, and you'll have more. How are you starting to think about being a mentor with the players you've worked with so far and that sort of thing?
I think now, definitely, I think that's one of my why I coach. When I first got the job at Green Bay, our all conference setter, who had been there for 4 years, was only 1 year younger than me. So that's another reason why I kind of struggled to, find my role. But now that I'm older and I'm, out of the college game, and I've been able to see this program develop for 3 seasons, I definitely feel like that's the reason why I'm doing this. I have a great connection with freshmen when I first did, and so now obviously going to be entering their senior year, but I have a great connection with them. And so having our relationship develop has been one of the most rewarding things for me. Obviously, I told them I took this new job, and we just went out for coffee 2 days ago. And it's great that I'm leaving, but it's one of the hardest, things to leave, is when you have those relationships. And so I'm realizing that, I left teaching, but in a way I didn't, because I'm still going to be mentoring people and being around teaching as much as I can. I'm still teaching, but just teaching the sport. So yeah, I'm excited to be a mentor. I'm a part of 2 mentor programs through the AVCA and through We Coach. But I'm the mentee right now. So hopefully in a couple of years or next year, I'll be able to be a mentor for someone who's just getting into the profession.
That was one of my questions as well. I mean, I knew you came in not very different than the seniors in this program. What was it like working with them? You came from Division III and were a good player there. These guys were Division I, and there is some separation there. How'd you mentally get over? Okay, now I'm kind of not really in charge, but you have to take some charge of what they're doing at the level that they're at.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I respected most about them, is that I never felt like they were challenging me. My first year, I struggled a lot mentally with that aspect of, am I good enough to be here? I played Division III volleyball, but this is a whole different ball game in Division I. And so I had a lot of things I had to work through mentally to believe that I was, meant to be there. But I think the culture that Abby's created, it helped because they always were learning and growing and they wanted to get better. And so it didn't matter that I was a first year assistant coach at the collegiate level. I had years and years of club and high school coaching experience. I just had never coached college ball before. And so I think, they had this just attitude of we want to get better no matter what. And so I'm thankful that Abby has instilled that into the program, because had we not had that culture and they thought that, they were the bee's knees and they were amazing and they didn't need coaching, I think it would have been really, really hard for me to, stick with it and continue to give them feedback. But I never felt like I would give them something and they, would roll their eyes or be like, she doesn't know anything. And so, I appreciate them for that. And, I'm still in touch with them and grateful for them. And they're still a big part of the program, but, I would say I've seen a big shift in how I approach giving feedback now as to before. When I first started, I would continue to question myself after I gave feedback in my first year, and now it just a big difference in my confidence and how I approach talking to players.
I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about that. About when the feedback approach you take with players.
I would say in 2019, it was very much so, good job, great set, nice hit, compliment after compliment after compliment, because part of it, I wanted to gain their trust and I wanted them to know that I believed in them. But now, since I've been around it for 3 seasons, I know each of my players so well at Green Bay that, I know my setter, Callie, who redshirted her first year, and she was a freshman when I was my first year there. I worked with her so much in the gym, just me and her, just constantly. I mean, literally from the ground up, we've been together. And so I know that in the middle of a match, I can tell her, hey, what's going on? And I can get on her about it, as opposed to other players where I probably would, give them a compliment and follow it up with a piece of feedback of how to get better. And so I think just knowing them personally so much better has helped in what I can and can't give them. But I would say it's way more constructive than it was in 2019. I've learned that just from watching Corey and Abby coach and watching other coaches and how they, and even BJ, like he's huge on feedback and he's helped me so much in what is actually going to help them and what is probably not so much going to help them get better as even as people. And so that's, I would say, like when I was talking to BJ before this about what I've learned, what's been the biggest thing that I've learned, it hasn't been, how to get our middle to swing block. It hasn't been very much the technical things. It's been more so like how I talk to them and how I make them into more confident players, but also helping them and guiding them through and, making them believe in themselves, but making them, better and more confident players.
That's great.
One of the biggest. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, you're good. Go, BJ.
One of the biggest observations I had walking into the gym in Green Bay, I cold called Abby, just say, hey, I just want to come and watch for a little bit and see what you're doing, because I hadn't really been in a Division I gym. And to me, the amazing thing was, and I said it this way in my head, I don't know that I've ever said it to the coaches, but they've already done the hardest thing, which is to just shut up. They're not constantly blasting the athletes with either compliments or improvements or any sort of punishments or whatever. They've just really done a nice job. And especially, I mean, for Abby's been in coaching for 12, 14 years, something. Oh, no, almost 20, I think. Almost 20 years of coaching. It's easier for somebody that's been doing it that long. For Corey and Abby, both of them in their 20s, to have learned that maybe a little bit less feedback is more appropriate. I mean, that's what really impressed me right away, and it took, I don't know, it took about 3-4 days before Abby said, "Hey, would you consider hanging around here a little bit more?" I'm like, well, yeah, and that was a big part of it, was that they have there's such good communication in the gym, and not a ton of communication, but good communication, and they really allow the players to go and search. So I'm glad you asked that, Steve, because just to hear Dell's perspective on that, um, as I mean, compared to you and me as a relatively newer coach, she's got a lot of good experience, but she's already learned one of the big lessons that took me much longer time to learn. So yeah, that's been pretty cool. Um, how hard is it though, Dell, when you're seeing something? How hard is it just to stand back and let them explore and fail and struggle a little bit before you jump in and help?
Harder than I would have thought. And I think I've helped myself out by going to either you or Corey or Abby during practice and talking about it rather than saying it to them. That's kind of like my way to help with that cause. But I honestly think the biggest growth, like the way I've seen myself grow the most in this aspect, was when I coached club, because I've been the head coach, obviously. And so I'm running all the practices there, where at Green Bay, we're kind of all collaborating. But I felt that same way when I first started coaching club. I was absolutely exhausted after every practice and every match at a tournament because I was doing so much. And now I understand that, I mean, my players were probably exhausted too by hearing all of that feedback at once. And so I definitely think that that's where I've grown the most. And now obviously coaching club, like you have more of that one-on-one connection. You only have, 10 players tops on your team. And so it was hard for me at first, and I think a big adjustment too, because I coached the same club team 2 years in a row. And so for them to see that change in me of, are you mad at us? You're not talking, you're not standing up, you're not saying side out after every point. And so that, I think, was where I grew the most. Obviously I've learned, how to be more consistent. And I think that's something that you said to me, oh gosh, I think it was during quarantine, BJ, where you said the players on the court are modeling what the coach is doing on the bench, and the best thing you can do for them is just be consistent. And so I've really taken that to heart. And, I think that has helped our Green Bay staff. If you watch our match at Green Bay, Abby's sitting, Corey and I are standing on the sidelines, but there's never a moment where we're jumping up and down or, screaming at something on the court, or we just look totally exhausted. I think that's something that we do really well. And I've figured out that it helps the team as well, as if we're poised and controlled on the sidelines, they feel like even if we're losing or we're not doing as well or we don't feel as cohesive, that we still have it under control and we're going to find a way out of it on the court.
We know that attitude cuts down on the tablet and clipboard budget for each year. No,
Yeah,
although
let's
I
give
used to
credit
tell
to-
I used to tell parents I like aluminum clipboards because they make a really great noise when they hit the ground. But that was just in jest. I don't think I've ever thrown one, but I've seen them thrown.
Giving some credit to Marv Dunphy, obviously our men's coach in '88 who won the gold medal. He said when he was asked, Kessel asked him, Steve, what's the best thing you can do for your players? And they were flying home from winning a gold medal, and that was his answer, in 2 words: be consistent. Because that's the consistency is where trust comes from, and you really see that. Like I think I've seen it more. Thinking back, I've seen it more now with the staff at Green Bay than anywhere else. Maybe because there's a bunch of us that are all working together, but that consistency is something you build your team foundation on. Tough losses and incredible wins, and even we had an incredible loss this year, place where we were really happy to be playing. and we were the same through all of those, on the court and during the performance. Afterward, the locker room, maybe there's a little bit more excitement or, you know, uh, excitement, anger, emotion, whatever coming out. But during the
Dancing.
contest, I think, yeah, I think our staff. I'm so impressed by Dylan Corey in particular being able to do that, because I would have never been able to do that at that age. I was all over the board. But yeah, it's a wild ride.
Well, I think it's an
I would
experience
love.
thing. Oh, go ahead, Del.
I was just going to add that Corey and I coached club together when I was in college, and he was just starting out coaching. And I would love to go back and see a video of us coaching, because it probably looks absolutely ridiculous. Like it, and we both talk about that, how we both of us didn't really know what we were doing, and we just probably looked just exasperated after every.
But by the same token, the parents probably loved you because you were telling the kids all this stuff, and they felt like their kids were being coached. And oh my, and I think one of my goals in getting this together for younger coaches to kind of look at these things and listen is that I want to compress that period of time when you're that green. I was green like that for too many years. Until I got some good mentoring and some why behind that mentoring. And then, the one thing I will say that worked well for me was I was always getting 2s and 3s teams. So, you have to have a much higher patience level. And the goal is to find the diamonds in that group, and also to make it fun for the kids who are just going to play, because where do our fans come from? They don't come from D1 graduates. There's not enough of them. It comes from people who love the game, and they might have played it for a couple of years in middle school, but they still play as adults, and they still are interested, and they appreciate it. So, I would not want to see any video of me in my first 3 or 4 years, for sure.
Not a chance. I don't want to see any of it. I have some of it.
Oh, there you go.
I know of a couple of ridiculous things that I did, and I'm just super afraid to go back and look. So the fact that you would want to see that, Del, is it's pretty brave.
I just know I'm so much better now. I think that's what helps me. But it's interesting, Steve, what you say about the parents aspect, because Corey and I were in the same situation where we coached a club team back-to-back years. And we had a parent say that about Corey, saying that he's a lot different from year to year, and how he, wasn't as engaged and wasn't as involved. But it literally was just him taking it all in, rather than, saying everything that he was thinking at once. So I definitely think that there is a bias to, the club coaches that are running up and down the sidelines, that I think parents love those coaches.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because I've got this one player just right now who is going to be great. He just has the right attitude. He played middle for me last year as a freshman. Good athlete, gym rat kind of guy. But I whispered in his ear, because I've got I've got a senior setter this year. Don't have anybody. I'm just not finding a lot of guys who are interested in setting and have that kind of mentality you need. I just whispered in his ear, "Would you be interested in setting?" And bang, yeah. Where do I start? And my assistant is a setter. And he's really good. He's like the most mature 20-year-old you ever wanted to see. If you're looking for somebody in a few years, Del, let me know, because he's really, really good. But he'll have to compete with Morgan Mickle, I think. If you haven't met her, go watch that video. Coach and training. But yeah, it's he hits the back wall on every serve because he wants that big bomb. And it's taken a lot for me to just let go and just say, okay, I'm just going to let him do it till he figures it out. It's hard.
we just in the last week or so saw that Katie Schumacher Cauley got the head coaching job at Penn State. And the reason I bring it up is because the majority of her head coaching experience is in our league, is in the Horizon League down at UIC at Illinois Chicago. So Del, what are you thinking about career? Where do you want to go? What's kind of the ultimate kind of career goals for you?
I was asked that in my interview, and I didn't really have the best answer because I don't want to. I feel like a lot of people are. I don't want to set myself up for. I have to be a head coach in 5 years. It's my 5-year plan. I think I'm more. I will be happier if I continue to follow what excites me and what challenges me, and so I want to obviously stay in volleyball. I love, the sport and the community around it. I also love the Midwest. And so that was a big thing in my job search process. And for all those who don't know my situation, um, had I wasn't a full-time employee at Green Bay. I was full-time work-wise in the hours I put in, but I needed a better situation for me. I'm turning 26 in April. And so I would have loved to stay at Green Bay forever. However, that was not going to be able to happen. So Abby knew I was job searching. And so during that process, there are a lot of opportunities right now. I mean, everything is shifting around with, head coaches retiring and people getting fired. And so I did have a lot of opportunities. However, I knew that my heart wanted to stay in the Midwest. All my family is here. I'm so familiar with, obviously the club world here, and things like that. And so that obviously limits you when you have, that geographical restriction. I think I want to continue to stay here. That's definitely something that's a goal of mine. I want to stay close to family. And so I would say I have things that are on a list of priorities that are, more important than me being the head coach at a Power 5 university in 5 years. And I don't want to put that on myself. I obviously have goals and aspirations, but I want to continue to be proud of myself through this, career path. And I don't want to, put anything on me. I was so happy being an assistant coach at Green Bay for the past 3 years. And so I know that I don't think I need to be a head coach in order to be happy, but if the right opportunity presents itself, I definitely think I'm ready for that. I was offered a head coaching position during this job search, and it just didn't feel like the right fit. And so I know that I'm ready for it. However, I think you just have to know, when you're going through the process, what feels right. And you got to check all the boxes and do that. There's more than just, what's on paper. It's, location and, the staff you're working with. That was a big thing for me, is that you're around these people more than your own family at some points of the year. And so you have to love who you're surrounding yourself with. And that was another big thing for me as well.
Well, and I don't think it's giving too much away to say that you're staying Division One. You have some Division One expertise, and that'll be a good. I think it's a good fit for you just to figure that out. I like your answer a lot. If I was interviewing and I heard that answer, I would say, wow, here's somebody who, who's flexible enough to let what's going to happen unfold and see, where are we taking this thing. So I think I think it's neat. I just was so impressed that somebody from our league could, again, like you said, with the right connections, could move up the ladder and get there.
That and I was told that getting into coaching, it's all about who you know. It's all about who you know. But it truly is all about who you know and who the people that know. And it's no discredit to her. I think she's going to do great there. And she's obviously has, that head coaching experience. I think our league is great. And I think that, too, it's really about, and that's how I got this current job. I didn't exactly know the head coach, but I am friends with someone who knew their assistant and talked to her about the position, and they reached out to me before they even had got my application. So it really, the volleyball world I have learned is big in the aspect of a lot of people are in it, but it's small in the aspect of everyone knows everyone, and hopefully, like, especially if you're looking for a job, I've learned you have to network and you have to put yourself out there, and social media, bringing it back to that, has helped me a ton in that aspect.
Yeah, I think people knowing they can look at Green Bay's social media, and if they know that you're the person, I mean, really, you're the person driving that. Just knowing that and seeing what's going on is a huge, kind of feather in your cap. It's
Mhm.
important to these institutions to have a good, positive um, face to the world. So that's a lot of it. And then of course there's winning. You have to you
Mhm.
also to some degree, and that's the hardest part I think of this job. And I'd love to hear your opinion of this, is the importance of winning versus culture, and how those couple of things merge.
I I mean, I went through this for sure because in 2019 we took how good we were for granted. It was a failure to us that we didn't win conference. And so like, as a staff, we looked at it as an unsuccessful season while we were in it because we didn't win and go to the tournament. But looking back, I keep thinking to myself, especially with what we went through in spring. I mean, our group didn't we didn't win. We were 4-12 in the spring, non or conference only. But as I knew I was going to have to start looking for a new job, especially this last fall, those thoughts went through my head of, oh my gosh, like, I hope we win more so I have a better chance, because that those demons inside you say, if you have a losing record, you're going to get fired, you're not going to have a job, people won't take you seriously. Like, it's that's punching. It's awful what thoughts go through your head, but I had to work through that. And there are things too that I thought about that helped me that we do off the court. Like our GPA, we've had the best GPA we've had in program history. This past spring and this fall, we had 8 players who had a 4.0. And so focusing on those things helped me a lot too. It's obviously not just the player that you're developing, but also them as people as well. And so those thoughts are real. And especially with everything going on in the job world right now, uh, I've seen some people that have been, asked to resign that have had decent, records. And so it's just interesting to me. And it's the crazy profession that we're in. And it's just about, taking yourself seriously. That doesn't, and let it consume you. I definitely could have, let that consume me all fall, but talking to Abby and obviously your staff helps a lot.
Yeah, Notre Dame comes to mind. I mean, they were uh, maybe in the top 40 or so in RPI, maybe at the bottom of the top 40, but probably one of the last schools left out of the NCAA tournament. Um, they had just about a 500 record, maybe just a little bit below. And to me, that would have been, well, that looks, they had a pretty decent year, coming where they've come from. And we're getting a coaching change. And I mean, Salima's an excellent choice. I'm
Mhm.
certain she's going to do a great job there. But for the outgoing coach, like, wow, what else do you have to do? On the winning side, obviously things were going fairly well. It just makes it an incredibly hard profession to
Yeah.
balance those two things.
I think too, a lot of it is with you bringing that up. Like, there's so many things that happen beyond, the record as well, that nobody that isn't in the part of the program knows about. And so what we went through this past spring, like Abby kept saying, nobody talking about our record or how poorly we're doing has any idea of what we're going through on the inside. And that kind of, drove us to, we're here for each other, and we're leaning on each other through this. But um I would say, like, that's something that I've learned, especially if I become a head coach one day, is Abby always says it's all about the experience. You know, they're committing to your program, they're coming and they're playing for you, giving them a good experience and something that they're going to look back on and love their opportunity to play for you. That's something that I want to continue to have be my driving force in whatever job I'm in. But she says that often, and that's something that's stuck with me. Just giving them a great experience outside of, you know, obviously coaching. It can't always be rainbows and butterflies when we're in the gym with them. But, you know, when you're traveling, making sure you're communicating with them, you know, off the court, you know, asking them about their life outside of volleyball. That's something that I loved about Abby as a coach. And that's something that I continue to do as a coach now, because I remember one of the first weeks I got to Point, I was in her office and she was asking me questions about my family and if I had a boyfriend and all these things. And I honestly at first thought it was a little strange, but then I realized she really just wants to get to know me as a person so she can develop that relationship. And that's something that I've always admired about her. And it's honestly made our relationship, you know, it's the reason it's as strong as it is today. And so I hope there are more coaches out there continuing to do that, because I know how much I valued it as a player. And so I hope that that's, you know, obviously something that continues to happen throughout, you know, collegiate or even club coaching, high school coaching.
You know, it helps to be, I look at it and it's being true to yourself, what your own values are and conveying those. And that may take you out of a job. You know, it's never good that feeling of being out of a job is never a good feeling, but it leads to other things. I was thinking about, so I used to teach at IIT. So I was in Chicago for 25, 26 years. And I was doing a course on sports, and we got the basketball coach in, and he was, you know, I think the prior 3 years we had won like four games. And he had come in and was making some changes. He said, I noticed in the gym, we'd be in the weight room and my students, you know, my athletes would be spending more time analyzing how the mechanics of the machines worked than working out. And he said, it hit me, I should try to tap into what this place is great at. So he got the idea of going to the data science department and saying, hey, could you do something to help us analyze how we play? And they had these two graduate students spent the summer going through all of their video from the prior year, came back to him with algorithms that would tell him which 5 players needed to be on the court in a certain situation. That year they went 22-5. And so it was like, okay, if I've got all this brain power and if they're curious about this other stuff, maybe there's a way I can use it. And every school is going to be different, right? So when you get wherever you're going, figure out what they're great at, because that might be something you can even add, and it might have nothing to do, at least seemingly, to do with the sport.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds like right up BJ's alley. I feel like he would love to do that.
I would. I'm jealous. It's something that it's. I'm constantly looking for what can I dive into what we've already seen to tell us what can we do to make a big difference. Um, you know, and there isn't one most of the time. You know, what Steve's talking about is just not there. I'm looking at can we figure out a way to earn an extra point a game, you know, or even 2 points in a match. Yeah, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of study, like Dell's been saying. It's not a 9 to 5. You have to put in the work and really study what you're doing, what your league's doing. I wanted to, before we leave, just brag a little bit about Dell. So I've taken probably 50, 75 volleyball trips with where you're managing a whole team. And she was talking about experience, you know, the experience of a team and what experiences they go through. I have never been on better volleyball trips than what we took with our Green Bay program traveling around the Midwest. I mean, we're going to be at this restaurant by this time, and we get there and the food's all ready, and then we're at this hotel and you show up and hey, there's already a spread and all the roommates are decided. I mean, it was just so super well organized. She probably did more in this season than I've done in my career as a as a Dell, if the teaching doesn't work, if coaching doesn't work and teaching doesn't work, you could be a travel agent. It was really good stuff.
Event planner, man. Event planner. There's
Yeah.
It's so funny too. I appreciate that, BJ. That's so nice. It's funny because anytime in my personal life it comes to planning, I want nothing to do with it. Like, I've already told my best friend, I don't want to plan my wedding at all. You're doing it. I don't want anything to do with it. So that, I mean, maybe it's because I do it, for my day job, but yeah, I want nothing to do with planning outside of volleyball days.
That's cool. Well, we're butted right up against our hour, so just respecting people's time, we're gonna cut it off. Any last thoughts, or what do you what's the next thing on your volleyball list of stuff to conquer, Dell?
Oh boy. Well, right now my biggest to do is to move. So I'm going to be packing things up here pretty quickly. I am going to be moving next weekend. So yeah, that'll be different. I wish I could say where I'm moving to, but hopefully next week you guys can share that with everyone.
Well, it's
Yeah,
great that
we'll
you
do
could be
that
with
for
us.
sure.
Yeah, thank you both. And I just appreciate what you're doing just for the volleyball community. I mean, it's people like both of you who are helping grow the sport. And just in my, 3 years of coaching, I've seen this sport grow tremendously. The NCAA match was, the most viewed match in history. And so, it's people like you who are getting the word out and helping people, and the Facebook group and everything like that. That's been awesome. So great job. Keep up the good work.
And we learned this last week after we end the feed, which I'll do in a minute. If you don't have to hang up. This is not a Zoom meeting, so it won't go away. So if you want to chat in the background for a minute or two afterwards, we're still here. But I'm going to hit our little outro. Thanks so much for being with us, Del, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing, and maybe we can get some ideas from you going forward. And have a great move next week.
Thank you.